Symbology of the Bible, Volume 2. Alphabet Soup. While learning the symbology of the Bible is of utmost importance to understand what we are being told, to see the message that is there for us to discover, it is equally important to continue to critique other theories in order to show to others the true reality of our existence. The classic model of humans spreading over the planet holds that the cradle of civilization is in the Mesopotamia area because the first civilizations of the Western world were established there. In recent years, the theory of Eve says that modern humans originated in Africa. Below is a map of the generally accepted migration pattern in the scientific community of anthropologists and related disciplines. We can agree on the pathways, but in question is the proper direction of the flow, as indicated by the arrowheads. The thing is, many hominid and hominin fossils and remains are called ancestors of modern man, because it is assumed as a premise, since that model rejects any other model, even if it is statistically more probable. And there are problems with the Eve theory of the first female human coming out of Africa.
From Species, appearing in the Smithsonian Magazine. The latest story about a sperm whale, Eve, shows how people misunderstand the evolutionary term. Fear not, we can clarify. In fact, the sperm whale, Eve, arose far later than the first sperm whale. By examining 1,600 sperm whales across the world, researchers surmised that this magnificent matriarch arose sometime in the range of 10,000 to 80,000 years ago. Meanwhile, the fossil record of sperm whales places them back millions of years. If you want to go all the way back to the actual biological Eve, you would have to seek out the ancestor of our mitochondria, says Roger Bull, a senior research assistant in the Molecular Biodiversity Lab at the Canadian Museum of Nature. If ever there was an organism that should be deemed the mitochondrial Eve, it is that unassuming little single cell that engulfed a littler single cell to make quite the unbeatable biological team. The ancestor of dinosaurs, trees, butterflies, even Donald Trump, Bull says in an email.
So, the out of Africa model has been modified, just as the theory of evolution of species was due to the appearance of changes, at a rate not allowed by gradual changes. Although the above analysis supports the more probable theory of apparent dimension and the existence of a super-advanced tech, we can concentrate on certain paths in the migratory map above, as shown below. In Genesis, we are told that the Garden of Eden is east from the location of the Hebrews, which was the north and south kingdoms combined. This would seem to indicate Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. The route shown can be related to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who spread north and west from Assyria, post-captivity. They also represent migration by land westward, and the fact that the tribe of Dan and the Phoenicians spread out by the waterways also. The reason for looking at these particular paths is that we can show a relationship between the various peoples along those routes, especially the two first by land and then by water, directly westward. And one of the best ways to show a relationship is to study their alphabets. Some say certain people adopted the alphabet of others, but that assumes the false premise that they are not related. It is much more reasonable to say that, as they migrated, they brought the alphabet with them and made additions or deletions to fit their need. It occurs quite often that a people separated from their origins through migration over time add elements to their language for things previously unexpressed. For Western civilizations, it is commonly accepted that the first alphabet is called Proto-Canaanite, named for the area where it originated, Canaan, and is shown below. It is also called Proto-Sinaitic. To the left is a table with 2 blocks side by side, with 4 columns each. It shows the above alphabet with Phoenician and Greek versions. It is easy to see how the Greek lowercase alpha a is formed by starting at the tip of the left horn, drawing the circle of the face with a loop, and finishing with the other horn. There are other obvious relationships, such as the letter D. The Phoenician and Greek versions are truncated versions of the Proto-Canaanite. The Z of the Greek is the Phoenician with the upright stroke, rotated right, and T in the Greek alphabet replaces 2 strokes inside the circle with 1. Of note are K and R, where the Greek is a mirror image of the Phoenician. This is explained by the fact that archaic Greek was written right to left and left to right.
Originally written horizontal lines either from right to left or alternating from right to left and left to right, called boustrophodon and pronounced boustrophodon. Around 500 BC, the direction of writing changed to horizontal lines running from left to right.
The parent and daughter languages of the Canaan region were and are still written right to left. The bidirectional feature of archaic Greek marked the beginning of languages to be left to right for those people who migrated westward from their cradle. Proto-Hebrew is shown below, along with the Phoenician alphabet. The similarities are obvious, and given the proximity of the peoples, in ancient times, we would not consider one to be adopted by the other, but that they are related, which they in fact are. The same holds for the Greek alphabet, shown below. The similarities are obvious with that alphabet also. Following is a common view of the Greek and other alphabets as pertains to their common origin.
When the Greeks adapted the Phoenician alphabet to write their language, they used 5 of the Phoenician consonants to represent vowel sounds. Yod, J, became I, iota, Vav, Y, became Y, upsilon. Aleph, A, became A, alpha. Ayin, O, became O, omicron. And He, H, became E, epsilon. New letters were also devised, Phi, Chi, and Psi. The result was the world's first fully phonemic alphabet, which represented both consonant and vowel sounds.
This view implies that the Greek people had no alphabet, no language, until they adopted someone else's. Another assumption based on a false premise: humans evolved along different paths, producing different peoples, and some adopted the language of others so that they would have external, interpersonal expression/communication also. It ignores the possibility that they were people that migrated west from the cradle and were related to others who did so also, but remained in the Canaan region. This latter view of migration, bringing the alphabet and language along with evolution of the languages to accommodate new things and new peoples encountered, is supported with other investigations. Another alphabet we can look at is Latin. Latin is the language of the Romans, the people of Troy who migrated there after the Trojan War and their defeat by the Greek alliance, as recorded by Aeneas. This war is the subject of Homer's The Iliad. The keepers of a people's history, also known as bards, would put the history down in a story that could be remembered, because that history was passed down orally before the writing systems were developed. A study of that war is the subject of another article. If we accept Aeneas' report, we expect similarities between the Greek and Latin alphabets, and we do find them. The differences are explained by the previously introduced mechanisms and possibly, in this case, purposeful changes to set the Romans apart from their ancient adversary, the Hellenes. As a side note related to this topic, we see a typical Roman soldier's apparel, below to the left, a Trojan in the center, and a Greek Spartan below right. They are essentially interchangeable, which we expect for the Trojan and Spartan, but it also establishes that the Romans were of the same people as the former. Of note is that their battle dress includes what resembles a kilt, and is the origin of the saying, "Girt thyself for battle," which means to cinch up the undergarments so that the legs have maximum freedom of motion. To close this article, a return to the premise of an ancestor of modern humans. Here is an excerpt from a BBC publication.
Homo sapiens are the only survivors of a once diverse group of humans and human-like apes, collectively known as the hominins. It is a group that includes around 20 known species and probably dozens of as yet unknown species. From the BBC. October 11, 2021.
This is an assumption that we are a branch that survived, while all others expired. This position fits much more closely to a theory of modern humans being genetically engineered from other primates, since it accounts for the sudden appearance of civilizations with knowledge of astronomy, building, etc. The ancient remains found that go back beyond circa 12,000 BC are primate remains, not human remains.